Welcome back to Unapologetically Visible, the podcast for high-achieving Latina and women of color founders who are done being the best-kept secret. I'm your host, Christina Olivarez, award-winning visibility and leadership coach, TEDx speaker, and founder and CEO of The Social Butterfly Gal and Hustle and Socialize. Today, we're going straight into the thing that so many of you send me a DM about, and honestly, many of you avoid doing, and that is selling. We're talking pitching your offers, selling your coaching containers, doing all things selling. And that's because you fear it. Many of us start getting that knot in our stomachs anytime we hear the word sales, especially when it's time to pitch the very thing that we know changes our clients' lives. If you just felt yourself tensing up when I said the word selling or pitching, I want you to know that you're not alone. You might already know that your work gets results. And still, the moment that you pitch your offers and tell someone, here are my offers, I believe you are a great fit for them, that starts making your heart race. Or even the simple notion of handling objections, which so many of us coaches and service-based business owners have had to deal with during enrollment conversations. Anytime you deal with an enrollment conversation, especially when it comes to handling those objections, your heart starts racing and your brain starts spiraling with questions like, what if they think I'm being too desperate? Or what if they say no? Deep down, the fear is not about the act of selling. Your fear is around your visibility and being fully seen in your power while risking rejection. And that's what we're going to unpack today. I'm sharing 5 specific things that I've done to break free from the fear of selling. These are the exact shifts that took me from seeing selling as manipulation to realizing that selling is the most generous and radical act of leadership that I can take. Along the way, you will hear my story, one of my clients' stories, and I'll coach you so you could walk away feeling more brave and ready to sell from a place of power and not from a place of fear. Let's start with the reframe that changed everything. For so long, I believed that selling equaled manipulation. And the reason why was because I remember hearing about those stories about car salesmen tricking people into buying a car that was already a lemon. I think when it came to my offer, I never wanted to seem like I was convincing somebody to work with me. I never wanted to convince somebody to do something that they didn't want to do. I always believed that my work and the results that I've accumulated over the years would speak for itself, and that people would find me just because I was creating content on social media. But I also am not naive. And I do know that as business owners, especially service-based business owners, we have to ask for what we want. I always love this saying, closed mouths never get fed. And that's so true when it comes to pitching yourself and selling. The truth is, selling is not manipulation. Selling is simply creating the conditions for someone else's transformation. My job is not to convince you. My job is to say, here's the problem that you told me you were desperately wanting to solve. Here's the transformation available to you inside of my coaching containers. Now the choice is yours. That's not manipulation. That is leadership. When I started to view sales as an invitation into transformation, the shame started to fall off. And I saw the same thing with one of my private coaching clients. During one of our coaching sessions, she told me, Christina, I feel like sometimes when I pitch my offers or when I'm sending DMs to warm leads, that starts really making my heart race because I feel like I'm convincing them. I feel like I'm desperate and all they can see is that I'm trying so hard to get them to work with me, and it makes me feel very uneasy and icky. When we started to unpack that very same fear, we realized that her fear was because of the constant rejection she had had with selling another offer that was not aligned with her current self. She didn't want to seem desperate or feel misunderstood, especially when people told her no. During that coaching session, I made sure that we didn't just go straight into any sales tactics or selling scripts. We started with her identity. We pulled out the inherited stories about selling. For starters, she believed that selling was greedy, that money made you selfish, and that good girls don't ask. We named the nervous system patterns that made her shrink, and we clarified the messaging gaps that left buyers feel unclear. Then we rebuilt around her power, not so much of her fear. And suddenly, selling her offers started to become natural. Every conversation was data, and every invitation was simply that, an invitation. Let me walk you through the 5 things that I personally have done in my entrepreneurial career to break free from the fear of selling. The first thing I did was clean the story. I had to face the beliefs that I had around selling. And that started from a very young age in elementary school. I don't know if your elementary school was like mine, but growing up, especially in the 2nd and 3rd grade, we had to sell these chocolate candy bars. It was called Cherrydale. As a kid, you kind of didn't know what to expect other than your parents telling you that you needed to ask politely and don't seem greedy. Don't ask for too much. Just have that one candy bar and go up to your aunt or your uncle or a family friend and ask politely if they would like to buy this chocolate candy bar. My parents had told me when you go up to them, make sure that you tell them why you want them to buy the chocolate candy bar, what the price is, and how this is going to impact our elementary school. So when I had to go up to my aunt or my uncle or my family friend, I really played the nice girl because who would say no to a nice girl? But as I got older, I started to see the pros and cons of being nice and gentle when it came to asking the sale. Sometimes it worked. And other times I had to be more powerful in my ask. And that's when I started to realize that I had to clean up the story in my head around the sale or asking for the sale. Because inviting is very generous. And I knew as I started to grow in my skills and in the way that I would pitch, I knew that my work preserves my power. I had to remind myself that it is safe for me to be seen. It is safe for me to ask. And I also had to remind myself, going back to what I said earlier, closed mouths never get fed. And that became my new selling script. I think one of the most powerful things that I could do when it came to making the ask or pitch was practicing saying my price out loud until it no longer made my body panic. Over the course of my entrepreneurial career, I have had many different offers at many different price points. And so anytime I was washing dishes or driving or even just looking in the mirror, I would always say my price out loud. I would be practicing my pitch. I would be making sure that I would record myself to audit how I made my pitch. But I really wanted to make sure that I was secure in the actual delivery of the price that I was going to be selling my offers at. I wanted to be confident. And the more that I gained the confidence was because the more I was not only practicing, but actually saying my price out loud. One of the best shifts I ever had was during one of my pitch meetings where I was going to be asking for $10,000. I practiced saying it neutrally, like I was naming the time of the day. $10,000. It's $10,000. It's $10,000. Because the fear wasn't in the number. It was my body's association with danger. Up until that point, I had never, ever asked for $10,000. And the mere thought of somebody actually spending that amount on my work felt like a threat. However, repetition gave my nervous system proof that selling at that price was safe. That by far was one of my favorite pitch meetings because I was running a little late and so I didn't have time to get all dolled up. So I just remember I put on a fresh coat of foundation and was like, we got to get out the door. And I remember walking in, sitting at the head of the table in front of 5 men, and I pitched. And I said, yes, this is $10,000. My voice didn't waver. I didn't stutter. I knew what I was there for. And I knew and believed in the work and the transformation that my business creates for other Latinas. I was positioned and I was primed. I was cool, confident, and collected. And guess what? I got it. I got $10,000 like that. The second thing I do before every discovery call or every pitch meeting is I make sure to regulate myself. Selling is not just about your words, but it's about your body language and your breath. Before every discovery call or before I send a DM to a warm lead, I have to ground myself. I make sure that I put both feet on the floor, have my shoulders back, take a couple of deep breaths, and I remind myself that my job is merely just to be inviting. My job is the invitation. Their job is to make the decision. I automatically go in knowing that that person on the other end is already my client, that I have already won. And that has made a huge difference in the way that I show up because my energy is starting to be aligned with the energy of how I'm showing up in my sales conversations. And another huge shift that I did was after I stated the price, I gave myself space and I paused. I stopped over explaining and stopped bargaining, stopped filling the silence because it felt awkward. Silence became my co-facilitator. And you know what? That silence shifted everything. Many of us have a habit of saying the price and then immediately start discounting our offer. We start saying something that could maybe jeopardize the pitch and the person's decision-making process. So the most powerful thing you can do is pause. I used to ramble after naming the price because anytime I would name the price, it really just felt uncomfortable for me. I was automatically thinking, oh my God, I'm saying the price. Of course, that person cannot afford me. And automatically, that energy was just that. The biggest, most costly mistake you can do is to be inside somebody's bank account because you have no idea what is in their bank account. You have no idea how they're going to be able to find the money. And you have no idea that for them, you might not be as expensive as they automatically thought that you were going to be. So before every single discovery call, or even as I delivered my offer and my price, I made sure to practice breathing through the pause. Once I started to do that, I would go into the enrollment conversations and then I would say the price and then I stopped. And guess what? Many clients said yes without hesitation. The third thing I did was make sales neutral. It's simply just data. For years, I had let every no feel like a referendum on my worth. Anytime anyone said no, I would start spiraling thinking that I wasn't good enough. I felt like I was failing because they would always say no. But that allowed me to understand how to track data. And if you haven't known me by now, I'm a very data-driven girl. I started to track my ratios. If 10 conversations led to 2 yeses and 8 nos, well, that wasn't failure. That was simply the pathway to the yes. They were the data I collected to observe my messaging, my body language, and my presence. And every time I got a no, it allowed me to get closer and closer to the most aligned audience that would definitely say yes. I created a scoreboard that I could win every day. 3 direct invitations, 2 follow-ups, 1 check-in, 1 visibility rep. My success was found in doing the reps, not getting the yeses. In fact, I had challenged myself during the Hustle and Socialize 2020 for 2 weeks straight. I was going to send over 150 DM messages. The goal for these messages was to get on Instagram and LinkedIn and invite someone to either share this opportunity to their network, enroll someone to purchasing, or enrolling somebody to share my message. Every day for 1 hour for 2 weeks straight, I would send 10 to 15 people a direct message on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And believe me, it was really scary. And while, of course, I wanted them to say yes, I was more concerned about the reps that I was doing because I knew that in order to get more confident in my ability to enroll, I had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable with selling. I had to use every message where I was ghosted, every yes, every no, as data. The best thing that I could have ever done for myself was send those messages. I'm serious. 150 messages that I sent because in 2 weeks, every no became neutral. It became data to me. And now I'm at a point where I know how to counter objections. I know how to say things that I was scared of saying. And I feel more confident in the way that I deliver because I've had that practice in countering any objection that anybody gets me. The fourth thing I did was apply POP. That's 1 problem, 1 person, 1 package. POP. When my offers were muddy, my fear started to skyrocket. I would always fumble with my messaging and how I would sell the offer that I was trying to sell because I had very many different offers. And I could tell that my messaging every time I was trying to tell people how they could work with me was kind of like if I was reading a list off of a menu. I had a real big trouble with being able to articulate what I solved, who it was for, and what type of container should they be working with me in. And so I really worked on getting clear and concise and clarify one problem that I solve, one person that I'm speaking to, and one package that solves it. No buffet, no menu, and definitely no trying to be everything for everybody. Pop brought clarity, and clarity calmed my nervous system. When I started to tighten my message, my invites started to land. A client who once described her work vaguely shifted to saying, before you overperforming publicly, under receiving privately. The fifth thing I did was switch from chasing to inviting. Chasing says, I need you. I need you to say yes, because your yes proves that I am safe. Inviting says, hey, I'm grounded. Here's the room that I've created. You'll know if it's for you. I stopped sending frantic paragraphs and DMs trying to convince somebody anytime they felt like, hey, now was not the good time. I started to send clear and kind invitations with permission and with choice. Some of the messages that I would start crafting is, hey, I've been thinking about you and your goals and the conversations that we have had. If having a calibrated visibility and personal brand strategy would protect your client flow and your cash flow right now, I can help with that. Want the details? If not, no worries. I'm cheering you on either way. That energy really shifted everything. My body softened and my relationships with my audience started to deepen, and selling became a relief. Now, let me share why this matters to me personally. I know what it's like to perform visibility, but avoid the movements that require you to say the actual number. I have overserved and overperformed and have been depleted because I was afraid of pricing for what I'm worth and asking for the sale. I was terrified of being seen in my full power. And most importantly, I was so scared of being rejected. When I started to rebuild selling from identity and nervous system regulation, clarity and invitation, I stopped leaving my body every time I pitched. And that has changed everything. Now I want to take you through a coaching process that I use with my clients every time we are working on visibility and sales. I want you to take a deep breath and ask yourself, what story is my body carrying around selling? Then ask, whose story is this? Your mom's, your community, your past boss, hustle culture? See it clearly and say, thank you for trying to keep me safe. I now release you. Now I want you to write a new truth about selling. Maybe it's inviting is generous and I am safe to be seen and safe to sell. Next, I want you to think about your most aligned buyer. One person. Name the problem that that person is desperately trying to solve right now in this moment. And I want you to name the container, package, or offer in your ecosystem that solves it. Say it out loud. I help this person solve this problem through this package. Then practice the invitation. Here's what I see in you. Here's the transformation available. And here's how we can do this together. Finally, practice saying your price neutrally. This investment is $5,000. Do you prefer to pay in full or would you like a payment plan? Breathe and let silence do its work. I want you to set a scoreboard for this week. 3 invitations, 2 follow-ups, 1 check-in, 1 visibility rep. Win the day by doing the reps, not by chasing the yes. When you shift your focus from the outcome to repetition, selling becomes a practice, not a performance. Let's recap the 5 things again. Number 1, I cleaned the story. Number 2, I regulated before and after the ask. Number 3, I made sales neutral by making them just data. Number 4, I applied pop. And number 5, I switched from chasing to inviting. These 5 shifts help me to detach my worth, regulate my body, clarify my message, and lead my sales with dignity. I want you to remember this. As Latinas and women of color leaders, sales is power. Every time you sell from your identity, you are rewriting the terms of your visibility. You are showing the next woman watching, this is how we do invitations now. If you are still scared, good. That means you're human. Be scared and do it anyway. Be tender and say the number with confidence anyway. Do the reps anyway. Your brilliance doesn't need convincing. It needs exposure. It needs invitations, and it needs you. If you resonated with this episode, here's what I want you to do next. Subscribe and leave a review, because that helps this podcast reach more women like us, women who weren't never meant to stay hidden, women who are meant to be highly visible leaders. Share this episode with someone you love who is scared about selling. And DM me on Instagram at The Social Butterfly Gal. Tell me your biggest reframe or biggest breakthrough from today's conversation. And if you're feeling the call to go deeper, to recalibrate your personal brand, leadership, and your visibility, I'd love to support you through one-on-one coaching. You can find the coaching information and offers in the links in the show notes below, or you could send me a DM with the word coaching, and I'll personally walk you through what offers are in alignment with your current season and what it looks like to step into this next era with clarity, confidence, and unapologetic authority. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening and for all of the reviews. Remember this, you didn't come this far to play safe. You came to be unapologetically visible. I'll see you next week.